Down in South America, in what is now Peru and Bolivia, all along the Andes Mountains, the food stuff that the indigenous peoples ate well before European settlers. Down in South America, the main food stuff that the indigenous people ate before the European conquerors showed up and changed everything was the potato. It was the main food. It was incredibly variable, and it supported gigantic cultures. The entire Inca Empire existed because they had potatoes and were able to feed their people using this wonderful, wonderful food. Now, up in this region, the Andes are mountains. Okay? And because they are mountains, you can have a farm on the side of one mountain that will produce lots of different types of potatoes, and 10 miles away, it could be the different side of another mountain, and the types of potatoes that they grow there are completely different. Being way up high in the mountains, it means that the amount of light, the amount of rain, the wind, the nutrients is all very different depending on exactly where you are. But because of that, the variety of different types of potatoes that were grown was immense. These days we think about russet potatoes, red potatoes, white potatoes, yellow potatoes, and there's only 5 or 6 kind of potatoes most of us will ever try. But you might have 10 or 15 different types of potatoes that are grown just in your village, and the next village down the valley, they have 10 different types of potatoes that they grow, right? And they all had different textures and different tastes, and so it was very, very um, unique depending on exactly where you were. Let's take a look at this area, okay? So this is South America. Let's zoom out so you can get a look. Okay, so here is South America. We live up here, where this hand pointer is, in Washington, D.C. And I know some of us have roots that go down into South America. My family was from over here in this western part of Mexico, but I do know that we have friends whose families come from this area, right? We have Peru over here, Bolivia over here, and one thing to notice is this big chain of mountains that's right along this line. Okay, over here on this side, it's pretty brown because it's dry, and over here on this side, it's pretty green because it's wet. So again, think, if you had a farm here on the wetter side and a farm here, which are not that far away, you would be able to grow very different kinds of potatoes because of the amount of rain, the amount of water that you had. But these mountains, the Andes Mountains, affected so much of what the culture was like down here. But this is the area, kind of this area, where potatoes originally came from. And now, of course, you grow potatoes all across the world. And here in America, most of us probably still think about potatoes in relation to a place called Ireland, right, which is way up here in Europe. Okay, this is Ireland, and Ireland is a place that grew lots and lots of potatoes because the Irish who lived here had been conquered by the English who live here. Okay, their capital, London, is somewhere around here. But because of that, the Irish didn't have a lot of food, and they only grew potatoes. And at some point, sometime in the 1800s, all of their potato crops failed, and they were starving. So a lot of Irish, in order to survive and help their families, went across the Atlantic Ocean and ended up here in America. A lot of them ended up in New York City and Boston, okay, and places like that. So this part of the U.S. has a lot of Irish heritage because of that, and so here in America, we associate, we associate potatoes with the Irish. Okay, and then again, New York and Boston are the big Irish centers of the U.S. But of course, potatoes actually come, like we just said, from down here, okay, from the Andes, from South America. Now, potatoes are interesting. They're not grown from seeds, they're actually grown from little chunks of potatoes. If we go back and look at how many different varieties, if I want to grow this type of potato, I have to take a little chunk of that type of potato, and that's what I plant in the ground, and I'll grow more of this type of potato. If I let the potatoes go have flowers and make seeds, I don't know exactly what kind of potato I'll get. That's why there are so many different varieties. Okay. Different cultures have different versions of very similar stories. Last week we learned about a giant turnip and how a Russian farmer had to ask his wife, his daughter, the dog, the cat, the mouse to help him pull it out. That story was about how even the smallest little creature, the little mouse, could be important when trying to do a task together. This is a version of that same tale that comes from South America, and it has a similar message, but instead of a turnip, it's a different local food. It's a potato. So this is The Enormous Potato, retold by Aubrey Davis and illustrated by Dusan Petrichik. The Enormous Potato. There once was a farmer who had an eye. It wasn't like your eye or my eye. It was a potato eye. The farmer planted it, and it grew into a potato. The potato grew bigger and bigger. It grew fat. It grew enormous. It was the biggest potato in the world. It's time to pull it out, said the farmer. So he grabbed the potato. He pulled and pulled again, but the potato wouldn't come out of the ground. So he called his wife. Wife, yoo-hoo, wife. The wife grabbed the farmer grabbed the potato. They pulled and pulled again, but the potato wouldn't come out of the ground. So the wife called their daughter. Daughter, oh daughter. The daughter grabbed the wife grabbed the farmer grabbed the potato. They pulled and pulled again, but the potato wouldn't come out of the ground. So the daughter called the dog. Here, dog, here. Woof, woof, woof. The dog grabbed the daughter grabbed the wife grabbed the farmer grabbed the potato. They pulled and pulled again, but the potato wouldn't come out of the ground. So the dog called the cat. Meow, meow, meow. The cat grabbed the dog grabbed the daughter grabbed the wife grabbed the farmer grabbed the potato. They pulled and pulled again, but the potato wouldn't come out of the ground. So the cat called the mouse. Help, mouse, help. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The mouse grabbed the cat grabbed the dog grabbed the daughter grabbed the wife grabbed the farmer grabbed the potato. They pulled and pulled again. Rip! Out came the potato. That's a big potato, said the farmer. That's a big potato, said the wife. That's a dirty potato, said the daughter. So they washed it and chopped it and cooked it too. The smell of potato brought the people from town. They brought forks, they brought bowls, they brought butter and salt. Soon, everyone was eating a potato. My, it was good. They ate and they ate till the potato was gone. And now the story is gone too. So these days, we dig a big trench and we bury the potato in the trench, cover it with dirt, and that's where it grows. And the cool part about potatoes, when they grow, you can actually cover their stems with more dirt, and you can make a mound, and all of the parts that are underground will make potatoes. So if you mound it up, you get more and more potatoes. So you plant your seed potato here, it starts to grow. As it gets bigger, you can see it's starting to make little potatoes. If we covered more of this stem, you would have more little potatoes growing out of this area up here. But it spreads these potatoes out in its root system because of where it comes from, where you might have lots of rain and then no rain. The potatoes are basically food storage or energy storage for the plant. All right, and so here you can see the potato flowered, okay, and then the potato made fruits, okay, and then the fruits, the seeds get spread. But while the plant above ground is doing all of that, it's making its potatoes underground and making lots of energy in case the seeds are not able to survive next year. When we grow potatoes in large fields, it's actually much easier to use big machines to do the work. You can see that one machine already went by and it dug up the potatoes and put them in this long line. And now these two machines are coming by to pick up the potatoes and put it in the back of the big truck. When you do it by hand, you will gather the potatoes out of the ground. You might have those machines are going by and they're turning over the ground to bring the potatoes to the surface, and then people will gather them in large bags and collect them so that they can be picked up and carried off of the field. Okay. Or if you have the resources, you can go by with these large machines and a fleet of them. Okay, one machine picks up the potatoes and another machine is just a truck that you put the potatoes into. All right? These are all the large-scale modern ways to grow potatoes. Here at my garden and at the Bridges garden and at your home garden, if you're a small grower, we might do something like this. This is called a potato box. So remember I said if you do it in a big field, you mound it up to cover some of the more plant, and the more parts that are covered, the more potatoes it'll make. That's what this potato box is for. Let's take a look at how it works. When the potato first starts to sprout, it'll start to grow out of this dirt. You can see it's in the box, okay? And then the potatoes will keep growing. This box is about 2 feet by 2 feet, and I'm able to fit 9 potatoes growing in that area. As the plant grows up, I can cover it, add another layer onto the potato box, let it grow some more, add another layer, putting more dirt on the bottom, and you can make it grow up fairly high and have potatoes throughout that whole surface. This is only about the 3rd year I've done it, so I'm still learning the best way to grow potatoes in a little potato box like this. If you look carefully, right, you can see in the background, here is the potato box. What I just want you to notice is how big and full the potatoes are and how big they've grown. Okay, the ground is here and the potato box is here. So that's how high all of that, this area in the middle, the potatoes are covered by dirt. You can see there, I believe, are 4 layers total at this point, but the potatoes have grown big enough that they are now starting to flower. I never thought about it before I started growing them, but of course potatoes have flowers, and they're actually really beautiful. So this is what a potato flower looks like. They're not something most people see because most of us don't grow potatoes, and we don't eat the fruit from the potatoes. We actually eat just the roots of the potato. But the cool part about potato flowers is that means they make potato fruits. And this is a potato fruit. And I bet if you look at a potato fruit, you might think it is a different kind of a vegetable. And what kind of a vegetable does this look like to you? Something a lot of us eat all of the time, and is another really important food that comes from South America that is now used all over the world. So this is, of course, looks like a tomato. Tomatoes and potatoes are actually cousins. They both belong to the same group of plants called nightshades. And just like the tomato has gone all over the world. We think of tomato like spaghetti and tomato sauce, or pizza with pizza sauce, are both sauces from Italy that are made from tomatoes. But tomatoes, like potatoes, come from South America. Here, if we zoom in, there's my potato box, 6 layers at this point, and the actual potato plant is still growing up out of the top. This was a couple of years ago, and our garden has grown up a lot since then, but I wanted to show you what it looked like when we were growing our potatoes. Big, strong, healthy plants. And then, when it was time to dig the potatoes out of the ground, you take the layers off, and underground you don't know what you're going to find. When I finally found a couple of potatoes, I was super excited. I was like, I have grown these out of the earth. And you keep looking, right? It doesn't look like there's anything there. If you look carefully, right, here's of course the one out. You can see one here, you can see one here. But maybe that is all that I have been able to grow. And you keep looking, and you keep finding more and more potatoes. Check this out. Oops, there's another one. Oops, there's another one. And so you have to keep searching and looking because they're just in the ground, right? Waiting. Their job is to be there. Let's watch that again. Their job is to be there so next year they can just start to grow. But of course, we pull them out of the ground so that we can eat them. And if I want to grow more, I have to kind of do my best to save some of them so that I can plant them in the ground next year. Okay, but we found lots of potatoes. Right, so this is all from that one potato box that I showed you at the beginning. You can see how they're all connected together up here in this clump. These are all just stuck together because they're all part of the same plant. The roots are holding them together, and the dirt's being held together by the roots. Of course, we will take them apart and we will clean them so that we can store them or we can eat them. Right, in this time, from this harvest, I got 7 pounds of potatoes out of the ground. Okay, and I think I put less than 1 pound of potatoes in the ground to grow. So a large increase, 7 times as many as I planted. All right, and here was my root vegetable harvest one day last year. There are many different ways that you can cook potatoes. One of my favorite, and one of the most traditional, is just to cook them over an open fire, or even better, over hot coals. You don't have to put them in tin foil, but it does help to protect them a little bit if your coals are too hot. And as you'll see in a minute, I overcooked these potatoes. They were still absolutely delicious, but I'm glad I put them in tin foil this time. Okay, put them in the flames and just let them cook. Okay, as you can see, they got a little crispy. Okay, but they were still super delicious and super tasty. Okay, I cooked regular potatoes up here, and I actually cooked sweet potatoes that day, which are something that we will talk about another time. But an absolutely delicious and traditional and healthy meal. All right. Of course, you don't have to bake them. You can mash them. You can cook them. I'm sorry. You can mash them. You can fry them. You can make lots of different things out of them. And traditionally, the indigenous peoples, the Inca, used to make so many different products out of their potatoes because they had so many of them. There are many different ways and many different types of potato that we can eat today.